Yeah. Today we heard from Housing Minister Harriet Shing, who appeared before the Commonwealth Games inquiry of the Upper House. And all I can say is, does anybody believe Harriet Shing's evidence today? It is extraordinary. To say, just like Jacinta Allen did, coincidentally enough, that she only learned that the Commonwealth Games were going to be cancelled the day after she spoke in Parliament. Remember, Jacinta Allen's evidence to the Parliament has been she only learned that the Commonwealth Games were going to be cancelled the day after she spooked them at the Public Accounts and Estimates Committee. Both of them can't be believed. What I would say about Harriet Shing's evidence today is it's not believable. It is simply not believable. And what it does now suggest is that it's more important than ever that Jacinta Allen appear before this committee to answer questions. It seems that with every Labor minister who fronts up trying to cover up the disaster that was the Commonwealth Games management and then the disaster of its cancellation is just raising more questions that Victorians need answered. This inquiry is important. We need to know what happened, not only because that's important in itself, we need to know what happened so disasters like this never happen again. So I call on Jacinta Allen to review her position, do the right thing, and agree to the Upper House request to appear. She can do it. If she wants to, she can appear before the committee. And I call on Jacinta Allen to do the right thing today and do that. Which brings me to the SEC. Today, there was a clear and blatant attempt by Jacinta Allen and her government to distract from the debacle of the Commonwealth Games with some announcement on the SEC. Let me be absolutely clear. Today's announcement, so-called, on the SEC is nothing more than a con. In fact, Jacinta Allen's SEC is as much a con job as were Jacinta Allen's Commonwealth Games. Today's announcement on the SEC was nothing new. There was nothing really new in it. It rehashed stuff that we were told about in a press release back in October 2022. Let's remember, the SEC under Jacinta Allen has no projects, has no partners, and it certainly has no new funding beyond what was announced in the budget in May. And we know what a horror show the May budget was. The $1 billion that's so far on the table for the SEC won't go anywhere near to the stated aims of Jacinta Allen's con job of the SEC. Much more money will be required. And there's a reason Jacinta Allen is not telling Victorians how much money she's actually going to commit to her SEC. You know why? Because it's all going to be extra debt. By 27-28, Victoria's debt will be well over $200 billion. And yet, Jacinta Allen is not telling us how many more billions will be added to Victoria's mortgage under this rotten, tired and incompetent Labor government. It's just not acceptable that the government keeps reheating statements it's already made about the SEC and not telling us the most important parts that we need to know about the SEC. As I've said, we don't know about the projects, the partners and the funding. All we know is, one, that debt will go up by many billions of dollars if they proceed with it. And two, the only thing we have to show for Jacinta Allen's SEC since the 12 months it was first announced is power prices have gone up by 25%. That's all we have to show for it, apart from the jacket and a glossy brochure today, which is half pictures. There's no new material in the government's glossy today. I want to talk about Mulgrave because the people of Mulgrave are also feeling the pinch of the cost of living crisis in Victoria, including power prices going up by 25% and in some cases more. As you know, the Liberal Party is contesting the seat of Mulgrave. We know it's a very safe Labor seat on paper, but it's important to give the people of Mulgrave a choice. We don't have to continue on with the incompetence and corruption, rising taxes that we see under Jacinta Allen and her predecessor Daniel Andrews. The people of Mulgrave have a choice, and we want to give them that choice for something better, a future where we look at lower taxes, lowering the cost of living and making sure we run our state more responsibly so that we can fund hospitals and schools and roads and all of the important services Victorians rely upon. We know, and we'll be saying a lot in Mulgrave, about the impact of Jacinta Allen's health tax. Jacinta Allen's health tax will annihilate bulk billing. It will drive up out-of-pocket health costs for the people of Mulgrave who just want to go visit their GP. And GP costs will go up for the people of Mulgrave. Why? Because Jacinta Allen is pushing ahead with a health tax in the form of payroll tax that will be extended to more doctors, dentists and other allied health professionals. The people of Mulgrave don't deserve that, and we're offering them a better way. Rising land taxes will affect the people of Mulgrave. There are many people in Mulgrave who have saved and worked so hard for an investment property to give to their kids or to save for their own retirement. And what Jacinta Allen wants to do with rising land taxes is take that from them, make it unaffordable to invest in property. And people of Mulgrave now, like Victorians everywhere, are having to wrestle with higher land taxes, all because Jacinta Allen couldn't manage the state budget. Jacinta Allen couldn't manage major projects, she couldn't manage the Commonwealth Games, she can't manage Victoria's budget. And our economy is suffering, and Victorians, particularly those in Mulgrave, are facing higher costs of living because Jacinta Allen can't be trusted to manage money, to manage projects, to manage the SEC, to manage the Commonwealth Games. Anything she has managed has fallen into disaster. We offer the people of Mulgrave a more responsible, promising future with lower costs of living, lower taxes and opportunities for all. We believe that the people of Mulgrave have been neglected by Labor, and we're saying to the people of Mulgrave, we will work hard for your trust and confidence over the 3.5 weeks that the Allen government has given us to campaign for your vote. We will strive as hard as we can to earn your trust and confidence. We know how tough the costs of living are becoming and how hard life is becoming under this Labor government. There's a better way and we're offering it. I'll hand over to David now.
I'll be brief. There's just a couple of points I want to reinforce. One out of today's hearing and the other about the SEC. The first point is that Jacinta Allen's evidence and approach, Harriet Shing's evidence today is just not credible. Ms. Shing's evidence not credible. Nobody believes that for 8 days in June she was not informed about the decision to hire lawyers to begin the process of cancelling the Commonwealth Games. Her secretary knew. Her secretary didn't tell her. And it's clear the secretary was also preparing options and alternatives, and he didn't involve her. So she's one of the two key ministers on these matters, and she was not informed. I don't believe it. Nobody believes it. The truth is she knew, and she should have been honest with the Parliament and should have been honest with the committees today. The second thing I would say is that Jacinta Allen should attend the committee. That's my view. The committee has obviously asked her and that's been refused, but she could reconsider that. There's nothing to prevent her appearing. There's nothing to stop that occurring. She could give honest evidence about the steps that were required. I mean, both her and Harriet Shing knew about the cost blowouts back in February, March and April. The department was officially advised in April about the massive cost blowouts and the need for supplementary budget money. Now, it's not credible that this all went on. Minister Shing meeting fortnightly, we know now, with key people in the department, the OC and the Commonwealth Games body, regularly being briefed on this. They're preparing up a budget submission with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of extra money contemplated, but she couldn't today admit that there was a massive cost blowout. Well, this is the government's mismanagement. It's the government's failure to scope this properly from the start. It's incompetence, and they should be honest, and Jacinta Allen should appear, in my humble view, at the committee. The other point that I would make on the SEC today is, we've got a glossy document released, incidentally at the same time as the hearing with Minister Shing. The document, the SEC document, has very little that's new. There's really very little that has happened with the SEC. We're heading for a year since the commitment now. The only thing that's happened in that period of time is prices for households and businesses have gone up. Household costs have gone up around 25%. People are doing it tough at the moment. The energy prices are really hurting families, and they've gone up and up and up. That is the first year of the SEC's achievement, higher power prices for Victorians. They haven't yet had any impact that's positive at all. I note that the PAYAC met the other day, and its estimates report made it very clear that there are no proper measurements of the SEC. There are no budget measures for the announcement of all the money around the SEC. There's no new money today, I note, but the money that was announced previously, there's no checks or measures or outcomes for the expenditure of that money. The only thing that I would say is that the SEC's task, you would imagine, is to lower prices for consumers, to actually make sure households pay less and have secure supplies. We know from AEMO that there's risks to power supply in summer, and we know that prices have gone up. And those two things are key metrics, key measures for the SEC. And on the issue of prices, families, whether they're in Mulgrave or elsewhere around the state, are actually paying more than they were last year.
Thank you. Questions?
You used some unparliamentary language. Do you regret that?
I've made it very clear that what was said by the Minister was not credible. And it's not credible. I don't think anyone believes it's credible.
Do you regret using the swear word that you did?
I think it's very clear that the evidence is not credible, and I drew attention to that repeatedly because we had blocking and unacceptable responses in my humble view, and I made that point clear.
Yeah, but you're not really responding to my question. You regret using that word all.
Well, I withdrew it, but the truth of the matter is I think the failure to respond properly was something that everyone who saw the hearing would agree with.
You got frustrated to the point that you felt unexpected?
Well, I don't think there was proper answers, and I don't think it was credible what I was hearing. So yes, I responded. I don't think it was credible. I don't think anyone believes that those 8 lost days in June are credible. The lawyers are brought in to start the cancellation process, and for 8 days the minister responsible is not told. Does anyone believe that? The secretary of her department knows. She says he didn't tell her. I don't believe this. Nobody believes it.
You believe her partner will have told her?
I've no idea, but the fact is there's a constellation of people who knew and didn't tell her. She's standing there with the Premier, with the Deputy Premier, with the Secretary of DPC, the Secretary of DTF, the Secretary of her own department, all of that. And nobody told her for 8 wasted days that the biggest thing in her portfolio was going to be cancelled. And lawyers had been called in, Arnold Bloch-Liebler had been called in to cancel the games and to begin that process, and she says she was not told. I don't believe it.
Was it really appropriate to bring up her partner?
Well, look, I think it's a very legitimate line of inquiry, along with all of those other people. There's a
But why
whole
not just-
constellation.
Why not bring it up as the former Premier's Chief of Staff as opposed to her partner, though? Therefore,
Well, that's the context I did. Yeah, and that's the point.
You mentioned the fact that she was a partner. Like, why
Well,
are you bringing her family
the
personal
whole point is that there was a whole constellation of people, a long list of people who knew, and the minister who's responsible claims she was not told. I don't believe it.
Why would she claim that?
Because if she didn't claim that, she would have misled Parliament. It's clear that the statements to Parliament on the 20th and the 21st are inconsistent with what she's, what was happening in government. She's telling Parliament it's all hunky-dory, that we're all cruising forward to the best games in the world's history, and at the same time they're actually planning to cancel the games at the same time. It's not credible.
Is it appropriate for the government to enter the market via the SEC and sell electricity to large manufacturers, government departments, etc.?
Well, it's a bit unclear about exactly what they're going to do with government departments. It seems very close, and the government hasn't quite been clear that they're going to mandate a lot of activity across government. Well, that will actually reduce competition if government departments are forced into one provider.
No, they've been clear with the studies what will happen. They will have to
Well, that will reduce competition and will push up prices for government electricity users. As a former health minister, we actually worked hard to increase competition and regularly cut the price of electricity through competitive tenders into the market, cutting the price of electricity for hospitals. Now that's a good thing. It's a good thing to cut the price of electricity for government energy use, whether it's a school, a hospital, or whatever. So I'm concerned that actually government providers will pay more. So this is one of the things with this SEC. It's a lot is still very unclear. We know on one hand we've got reliability issues over here. AEMO's pointed to that. We could have trouble this summer, and I hope that we don't. I hope the government's prepared, but there's real risks have been pointed to by AEMO. At the same time, on a basic metric like price, what you all pay, what the community all pays, what people in Mulgrave pay at their house for electricity has gone up by 25%. Business charges have gone up. So that's not a very good record. And now we find they're going to reduce competition and force potentially schools and hospitals and other government agencies to pay more.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, pleasure.
David, what happens with the inquiry?
Oh, yeah.
That's it.